dust is in my eyes, my blood is on the ground. Quiet little chuckle and the shuffling of the boots of the coward that shot me down. He turns toward the sunrise and I hear him softly say, I guess you've met your macho man as the colors fade to gray.
Howdy, y'all, and welcome to Dust and Blood, the podcast, the introduction. My name is Blake Alfson. I'm the GM of Dust and Blood.
And I'm Gale Parker. I do the audio for Dust and Blood, and also play the character of Bonesaw. We are not the only ones playing Dust and Blood, though. To get to know our other cast members in a little more detail, check out our first Roundup episode. We're going to have a link in the description. And we go into a little more depth about who's who there. This introduction is to help orient you to the world a little bit, tell you when we are and where we are and who are all of these people. If you'd rather get straight into the story, feel free to jump to episode 1, Welcome to Ravenspine, which will also be linked below.
So let's start off with what is Dust and Blood?
Dust and Blood is a narrative play podcast set in the fantasy West. Essentially, we're going to tell a story by role-playing as the characters, and we are using the Pathfinder 1st Edition system to give us a little structure. What that means is basically anytime we come across a challenge or a question in the course of the narrative, then we will roll some dice, and based on whether they're high, we might succeed. If they're low, we might fail. And that's just going to give us an element to the story that is a little more random. Pathfinder 1st Edition, you might be asking, isn't that kind of old school? Or you might be like, what is that? First thing I will say is you don't need to know the rules to enjoy this podcast. It is, as I said, a narrative play podcast. It's very story-based. It focuses on the lives of the characters and the shenanigans that they get up to as we go through the story. If you're coming here from D&D 5e or any other D20-based system, this should map on pretty well to your knowledge of how tabletop role-playing games work. But if you've never played a tabletop role-playing game, we also welcome you here. We hope this sparks an interest in you, but you can also just come for the story. It's a fun story.
Absolutely. And we welcome all listeners. We hope you enjoy.
The setting for Dust and Blood is a fantasy western, which means we're going to take some historical elements starting in the year 1875, but combine those with some fantastical inventions of our own. Our story begins in the New Mexico territories, but it could potentially range all through the Arizona, Colorado, and Utah territories, and who knows, maybe even beyond. The population of the world has a diverse cast of characters from different backgrounds, religions, ethnicities, as well as some fun fantasy races that you might be accustomed to, like elves and dwarves. Blake also came up with some new ones just for this world, like centaurs and dragonborns, minotaurs, and zombies, my particular favorite.
Now, one of the things that we need to talk about early on in this is the Wild West, as we know it, is a minefield of harmful and insensitive tropes, and often skates over the downright horrifying parts of its historical background. We have done our best to identify and think deeply about these areas, and would like to address some here to aid all of us in playing a game that is sensitive to its roots. Sometimes we will mess up. However, we welcome the opportunity to learn from you, our audience, and we will always strive to be better. We're not trying to whitewash history by taking out the bad bits and making everyone, quote-unquote, play nice. Slavery happened. The atrocities committed against First Nations people in America happened. But we're also not interested in diving deeply into the issues of racism or genocide at this table, especially because such topics can be harmful or triggering for our audience. We want to have fun cowboy adventures with bandits and high noon duels, not delve into the quagmire that was the post-Civil War Reconstruction era. So we have done our best to strike a balance between honoring the history that shaped this landscape and changing parts of the world to create a fantasy version that evokes the high drama and romanticism of a Western.
It should also be said that even with a lot of these changes and with us striving to be sensitive to the subject matter, there are a lot of disturbing and potentially troubling themes that might come up over the course of the game. The show as a whole often contains gunshot and explosion sounds, snakes, cursing, body horror, depictions of insanity and memory loss, substance use, violence, gore, and death. We care about you and we want you to feel safe, so please be mindful and listen with care. There are more specific content warnings that go along with each episode, but those are the most frequent.
To that point, we have introduced several historical changes to develop our fantasy Western. One of the largest and most important is our good President Lincoln, who, while shot in Ford's Theater, came back as a zombie and is, well, not alive, but is undead and was reelected to a third term as president. With him at the helm, there was a committed dedication to Reconstruction that broke the spine of the plantation owners in the South. This led to an overall reduced army presence in the West, which empowered the Apache, Comanche, Hopi, Navajo, and Ute tribes to form a tenuous alliance called the Native American Alliance, which presented a unified front against the army, and for now halted its push into native lands. Though the alliance is shaky, built over age-old tribal warfare and fights, and the army is ever encroaching, the peace holds for now.
This is a magical world, but one in which the Industrial Revolution is also beginning to take place. And one of the main themes of this story is that magic and technology grapple to solve the same problems. Sometimes they are against each other, as is the case with the Delaware Wizards Association vying against the railroads, because both can be used for transportation. One is magical, one is technological, but they both seek to solve the same problems and profit from the same issues. You can also see magic and technology working hand in hand, as in the profusion of magical guns that can be found in the hands of gunslingers and bandits alike. Availability and access to magic also drive social changes. So in some places, it might be cheaper to use a magical solution or a technological solution, and you can see that in the web of the society at large. Not everyone can do magic in this world, but there are many paths to being able to do magic. You might have dragon in your bloodline. You might make a pact with a fiend or a fae. Or you might just be a good old tinkerer. Who knows? In a similar way, you can expect to see a fusion of real-world religions represented in the setting, and also some fantasy religions and or spiritual paths. The cosmology of the Pathfinder system is also represented in the presence of the planes, such as heaven and hell, which are real places you can visit, assuming you have the right spells or technology. Another interesting aspect of this world is the presence of the undead, meaning folk like zombies, skeletons, ghosts, ghouls, liches, vampires, revenants. And it isn't so much important that you know the difference between each of these as they come up in game, and we'll kind of learn those as we go along. But some undead are intelligent and some are non-intelligent. So a zombie or a lich might actually be a thinking, feeling being, where a skeleton might just be an animated pile of bones, essentially. There is also an interesting relationship between positive and negative energy, which is an aspect we take from the Pathfinder setting, in that positive energy heals living beings and harms undead beings, but negative energy heals undead beings and harms living beings.
This is not a commentary on the goodness of positive energy or the evilness of negative energy. Both can be used for good or for ill. They just represent two sides of the same coin.
You'll also run into a lot of different factions in this world. The railroads play a big part. There's a Delaware Wizards Association mucking around in the background, the Pinkerton Detective Agency, even the mysterious Revenant Rangers. But we'll learn about all of those as we go along. For now, sit back, relax, and enjoy Dust and Blood. We are so happy you are here, and thank you for listening.
Listen to us releasing on the 1st of every month, and feel free to share with your friends, family, loved ones, hated ones.
Mortal enemies.
And we look forward to joining you in the Wild Wild West.
My eyes shoot open to the early morning sun. I feel that aching, pounding, poking of a bullet in my lungs. Skinny ceiling, bones crunching. I feel that wretched ancient something drag me up to face that coward son of a gun. His face grows wide as he fumbles for his holster. I feel the lead pierce my shoulder, neck, and chest.